Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to this special broadcast, part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav series on Sansad TV. I am Teena Jha. As we celebrate 75 years of our independence, it's time to reflect on our glorious history and achievements. Guided by the ideas and ideals of the past, strengthen our present and reinforce commitments to build a brighter future. In the words of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav means elixir of inspirations, of new ideas and pledges, and of Aatmanirbharta. So on this special edition of the program, Bharat Ek Soch, India at 75, we are going to talk about 75 years of our scientific heritage, our many accomplishments, and also the prospects for the future. Joining me in the studio is a very special guest, the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, Professor Ajay Kumar Sood. Professor Sood, thank you for your time. Welcome to Sansad TV. Absolute pleasure to have you on this edition of the program, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. In fact, since we are celebrating this landmark journey of the country, let me take you back in time and understand how India's journey in science and technology has been so far, the kind of, India we inherited, and today, where do we stand?
So, this is really a momentous time for India because when we look at what has happened in 75 years, it's really remarkable on any scale. The way we started our program, where we were food deficit, where we had issues with lot of securities, health securities, and many other things, we have come a long way. So we have success stories in science and technology arena, be it in space, be it in atomic energy, but also in the scientific education, science ecosystem, technology ecosystem, and more recently, really our confidence to do startups on a scale which we have never done before. So if you look at the entire journey, the pace of movement has really become much more than in the last, let's say, 40, 50, 60 years. Because there is enthusiasm amongst youth to take up S&T challenges. That's how we have been running this, startup challenges from our office and from other platforms. For example, drone technology is a very good example which happened recently. So if you look in totality of things have moved extremely well, but we still need to go a long way.
Absolutely. So this journey that you spoke about has seen significant transformation, and this is not that we had inherited because, of course, we had our share of challenges. At that time, infant mortality rate was at its highest, maternal mortality, and so to say the challenges were many. Today, of course, the challenges have, changed manifold, and we will talk about that as well. But, since we are talking about our glorious history and the kind of giant leap that we have taken in the field of science and technology, what are some of the remarkable accomplishments of India that you would like to mention? Yeah,
so, as I said, in the organized sector of S&T, see, there are two parts to S&T. One is that it is very it is driven by the aims you put in. For example, in space, which started pretty much late after independence, but there we have a specific goal, how to use space science for the benefit of the humanity. How the satellites have been launched, be it for education, be it for agriculture, be it for telecommunication. That is one side of science and technology. Other side, of course, is in atomic energy, how we have done in our contributing to defense, contributing to our energy issues. Then we have the defense research. But also, we have another sector which is science and technology in the educational institutes and also in the national labs. Now, there you may not have one or two examples to say we have done that, but the entire scientific temper, the entire aspirational aspects of the youth have been built in that.
And that particularly we have seen, Professor Sood, during these difficult times that we faced during
Absolutely.
COVID as well, where not just the public sector and the private sector, but youngsters stepped up to, tackle the challenge. And since, this was a challenge of a scale that we had never seen before, it was a once-in-a-century crisis before the world, the manner in which India handled it, but of course there were also several lessons for us. So what is it that we have learned from, the COVID crisis, and how are we now preparing ourselves to deal with such crisis in future?
Yeah. See, COVID is a very good example where it is very clear that our preparedness over the last 40, 50, 60 years really paid dividends. Why? Because if we were not ready with S&T system, we could not have done the vaccination drive the way we did in a remarkable time of 12 months. We could not have prepared our PPE kits, masks and so on from the time we had hardly a few hundred tests and we are now doing in few tens of lakhs of tests. All that didn't come overnight, please remember. All this had in the background enormous strength which we had built up. So as you know that when this COVID started, the COVID testing was being done in laboratories, science laboratories, because we were ready for it. Even the genome sequence is done in that fashion. Now, this is not easy to build in a day. It takes years of our preparedness, and this is what I call where the science ecosystem has to be perfectly ready for really launching into any immediate emergency which may come. And this is where we say, how do you go for future pandemics? Supposing you have to prepare yourself. Are we ready for that? Answer is this COVID has taught us many things. So what we are now doing is to think about One Health mission for the country. What is One Health mission? You don't take the human health, animal health, wildlife health and the environment separately. Don't do that. Because they are all interlinked. As you know, in COVID times, we have diseases going across the boundaries of all these three domains. So what we are discussing now, One Health program is already happening in few ministries. What we are trying to do at a PSA office is to see, can we bring synergy into them? Can we fill the gaps into them? And how do we future ready? How do we put in place environmental surveys in place? How do we put in place the future vaccines, mRNA platforms? How can we keep ourselves in a predictive mode? So all that we are trying to do in this One Health mission.
Since you spoke about synergy and how we have to approach any kind of challenge as a collective, one area of concern for India has been to increase private sector participation. I mean, mostly in our country, we are seeing it's the public sector that takes the lead. That, to an extent, was changed during the pandemic. Yeah. But going forth, there has to be more synergy, more participation to, to encourage more private sector participation, as is in a lot of advanced economies. What are the kind of efforts that we are undertaking?
So I'll give you by an example, which will be probably more easy to understand. When this COVID started, we needed hospitals to be ready in a record time because the numbers are really not predictable. So what our office did, we have a strategic alliance division which made interaction with the corporate bodies from their CSR funds, and we brought them along with the startups who can make these hospitals, deploy them and really run it. All that was done by our office. Now that is a very beautiful partnership between the corporate sectors, the government sector and the startups, which was done in a record time. Then we also did, for our diagnostic kits, again we brought in the corporate sectors, the startups, the philanthropic organizations, and we made sure that we have all the aspects of diagnostic kit covered, be it chemicals, be it how to test it, how to do the machines ready and so on. So this is another example where we succeeded in scaling up, which wouldn't have been possible otherwise. So this is again I mean, of course, all of us were driven by this COVID things, but COVID need not be the factor all the time.
That has been a learning lesson, and we need to now look beyond.
And we should not give it away.
So in that aspect, you spoke about how the corporate social responsibility is one area that is being worked upon. What about scientific social responsibility and the synergy between science and society going forth, and the kind of challenges that we are, yet to face, with the kind of warnings that the scientific community is giving to all of us? We need to be future ready.
I think it's a beautiful idea which has come in last few years. Like CSR, we have SSR. And here, there are many aspects to this. SSR has many verticals. One vertical, which is probably most relevant for our interview also, because it is a way to outreach scientific methodologies, scientific temper, scientific achievements to public. Because they are the taxpayers. They really fund the science in one way or the other. Now, this part should be a serious exercise in SSR, because if we are doing work in our let's say science domain, we should really make sure that we communicate in the right way, not with any hype or not with any exaggeration, but in a transparent manner. And it was also very clear that kind of a thing is necessary when you are dealing with pandemics. How do you communicate to the public? So social scientific SSR is a very important aspect, and I do hope that it takes firm steps in coming years. So it is a new exercise, new experiment, and I have a feeling it will have a very interesting outcome.
When we talk about science and innovation in our country, a lot of our focus should go on need-based science and something that yields positive results when we talk about, social benefits. That's something we've been talking about. But innovation is one area that requires a lot of funding. Unfortunately, if we compare ourselves to other leading economies, our share of GDP towards innovation is comparatively quite less, because we have other development aspects to look after. But gradually, as the funding increases, how do we build that kind of innovation system, that innovation ecosystem in the country, which is, largely need-based? Yeah.
So as you rightly said, we are hovering around 0.7% of the GDP. Now, here you have to also look at the government participation and the private sector participation. Private sector participation as compared to other countries has been very limited. 0.3, 0.2, even less than that. So most of the funding is still coming from government sector. Now this has to change.
Absolutely.
Which means our private funding or the corporate funding with appropriate incentives, appropriate benefits has to come into play. And it will only benefit the entire society, entire community. So that is one aspect which has to be kept in mind. Now in science, there are two aspects one has to appreciate. One is, target-driven science, or you can call it basic science, which has, let's say, some end goals, which is very good and required. But also, there should be a place for basic science per se, because unless we have that, we may not be future ready. So for future ready, we need to have the strength in our own science system. We cannot be depending only on outside world that we will use their science. It does not happen.
Absolutely. And when our local problems are different, we need to have our local solutions.
Local solutions, and also the scientists should be challenged. They should be challenged how to deal with it, what is the new science you need to do to take that challenge, and really see completely innovative solution. So there is a place for fundamental science, also how to translate that science for public good. So both have to hand in hand. So there is nothing like this or that. It has to be both.
Absolutely.
So science, technology, innovation are the three pillars, should be of equal strength, and they should not be really at the cost of each other. They should, all three are very important.
Professor Sood, another aspect where we are doing well comparatively is, the youth and women participation in STEM. I was reading somewhere there's data which says that about, 43% female science graduates are from India, which is the highest in the world. Yeah. But that does not translate into jobs. So where are we lagging behind? Why are we not, giving them that kind of environment so that these 43% women graduates actually, they don't drop out and they continue with more prosperous jobs?
You have brought out an extraordinarily important point, because in the last few years we have seen that only 16% out of 43 remain in the STEM workforce, which is a serious leakage of from 43 to 16. So that is something which has to be addressed. But the good news I see in my own life, I see an enormous sensitivity which has come in the last many years on gender balance, not only in STEM but also in STEAM, even in arts. And that, I think, is a very good move. All the actions have to be taken, how they have to be supported. They should not be lost, because there are other responsibilities for women which cannot be sacrificed. They are not less important than the other.
There has to be the right balance.
That has to be a right balance. Good news is it's happening. Good news is that enormous sensitivity is there. And today you saw we have the first women DG of CSIR.
Absolutely. And remarkably, because it comes in this very special year of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav.
So I'm saying things are going in the right direction. We have the first women president of Indian National Science Academy in the last 75 years. She took over when I relinquished my presidentship. Again, enormous progress from where we have come. So I would say it's happening, but it should happen at a faster pace.
Absolutely. It's important to have participation of women as well as the youth if we are, looking at the kind of ambition and the objective that we want to achieve in the field of science and technology. So in that aspect, if I could ask you about the kind of initiatives, the policies that we have undertaken in recent years to make science and technology more inclusive?
Yeah. See, the point is that in STEM workforce, we need to really motivate girls right from the early age. So this difference between the two genders, which is very artificial, has to be removed. So under our office, I can tell you what we have been doing. Under the PSA office, again under the Strategic Alliance Division, we have tied up with the corporate sectors to address this issue. So we have fellowships for the women candidates. We even are bringing out a coffee table book on that. We are making a Manthan platform where these things will be launched. So what happens is, in all of this, we need to see that we take both the genders on equal footing. So a lot of work is happening also in Department of Science and Technology under what they call Kiran, K-I-R-A-N, Kiran Mission, with many programs for women scientists. So my feeling is it is making a difference, but the speed has to be raised.
Certainly, and with the kind of ambitious targets that India has been setting for itself, we need more and more young participation. The good thing about India is that we have the youngest youth population in the world, and that is something that we have to, their full potential has to be realized. Professor, a lot of youngsters must be watching us today, and through this program, what is one positive message that you want to give to the young budding scientists and those who want to, persevere a career in this sector?
Yeah, so what I would say is that the government is very keen to promote science and technology solutions in the country, and to promote the S&T culture, to promote really the interaction between various science ministries. That is where PSA office comes into force, and many things in education. So what I would say is to young people, that enormous scope to contribute to the science ecosystem right now. new areas are coming up where we should be future ready. And we have to see that we do not really go in a negative way of thinking, but overcome the challenges. Challenges are not less. I'm not going to belittle the challenges.
And they're only going to evolve with time.
Yeah. We make sure that we really come up to the expectation which public has from S&T solutions.
Absolutely. So this is one sector where we have seen a giant leap by India with the kind of scenario that we had in 1947 when we gained independence to today when the world recognizes the scientific vigor and potential of India. Thank you, Professor. It's been an absolute pleasure to interact with you on several issues ranging from the past to the present and the kind of future challenges and how India is gearing up for another kind of transformation in the next decade or so in the field of science and technology, and for which youngsters have to contribute majorly. So on that note, I'll have to wind up the program. Thank you once again, Professor, for joining us on the platform today. Thank you so much for interacting,
and I look forward to many more dialogues. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure once again to have you on the program. So that's it from us on this special edition of Bharat Ek Soch. Thank you, viewers, for your time as well. See you again same time next week with another special program. Until then, take care of yourselves and keep watching Sansad TV.